Good morning, all. Today we'll be seeing about the GLP for non-clinical practice. So, in Module 1, we have already dealt with the GLP. So, what is the definition of GLP? What are the principles under GLP? When GLP has to be used? All this we have discussed in the Module 1. So, in your later unit of the Module 5 comes this topic of GLP of non-clinical practice. So, whatever is like not associated with the clinical practice, those also has to be under GLP as they are being carried out under the lab. Sometimes they are being ignored, and today we'll see like what's the importance of looking at these non-clinical practices and how these regulations play a vital role in the non-clinical practices. Okay, so what is GLP is like? GLP is a regulation. Yes, it is under FDA, and more definitions we have, more definitions principles we have seen in the module one. You can just refresh those. So it's a quality system concerned with the organization process and the conditions under which the non-clinical health and environmental safety studies are planned, performed, monitored, recorded, achieved, and then reported. So in simple words, I can tell that GLP is for uh, health and environment. Okay, for those, so here we are looking at only the non-clinical things. So we are looking at the non-clinical health and environment of whatever we do in the lab. And those things, safety studies should be planned, done, performed, monitored, recorded, and also it should be reported. So whatever you do for the maintenance of those non-clinical items, they have to be recorded and then reported. So when you look at the non-clinical laboratory, so what does it mean? So we use this word frequently. What is this non-clinical testing? So when you look at the non-clinical laboratory testing, it usually means the in vivo or in vitro experiments in which the test articles are studied prospectively in test systems to determine their safety. So in vivo and in vitro experimental methods are done, right? And then it is being tested to determine their safety. So this doesn't include the utilizing human subjects or animal trials. So the animal trials doesn't come under, but how these animals are taken care, those things will come under the non-clinical testings. So it means the in vivo and in vitro experiments, and test articles means the equipments which are used for doing these experiments, and they have to be tested routinely to determine their safety. They have to be calibrated, they have to be maintained. So these things will be the non-clinical laboratory part, which is under the GLP regulations, which has to be done. So today, or many pharmaceutical organizations or sectors or any lab, we mostly bother about the sterile processes involved. So for all those sterile processes, what a lab is doing, maybe with respect to LAF or a clean room or a sterile room, there will be a lot of SOPs, protocol, maintenance, and even the calibrations of the equipments will be done routinely for the sterile processes, mainly which is involved in the clinical things. But what is ignored is this non-clinical part and the non-sterile processes. And if the regulations or if the GLP regulations is not implemented for this non-clinical testing, this will directly or indirectly affect the clinical testing, and hence your product will not be a successful one. So we'll see what are the non-clinical things and what are the importance of those in regulating those. So here you have to characterize what are the toxic effects with respect to some test organs involved, and some dose dependent studies should be done, and safe testing, that is dose and dose range for human trials, because your GLP or good laboratory practices is mainly for the human health and maintenance, right? So when you're looking at some laboratory uh, testing facility, you should look at what are the toxic effect with respect to a particular chemical, or if there is a equipment that is being involved. And if you are taking a human trials, what is the safe dose? Are you giving the dose in the within the safety limit? And if you are using a animal model also, are you looking at a safety dosage level, or you're overdosing your drug? So that has to be taken care. And parameters that are needed for the clinical monitoring to characterize potential adverse effect that might occur during the clinical. So in case if there is some adverse effect that is happening during the clinical trial, even those has to be taken care. So all these are the goals of why you have a non-clinical laboratory practice and why it has to be under GLP. And GLP abides by US FDA. If you are not following this FDA regulations, so this is being given under this section. And if you are not abiding by this, in short, you can tell that your research, okay, if you are not abiding by this US FDA, your uh, laboratory will not be regulated, and whatever research you are carrying out will be stopped, and there will be a lot of restrictions for the researchers and the outsourcing of your product to other places. So, in short, whatever you are doing will be stopped if you are not abiding by the GLP and US FDA regulations. So, it is very important for a lab to go under, even if it's a non-clinical process what you're doing, it should be under the GLP. So we'll see what is the scope of it, how it is being inspected, and how it is being applied for different studies, and how the grants will be affected in case you are not under the GLP. So the scope of the GLP is for the non-clinical lab what we are discussing today, and what are the things come under that as a food and color additives. Mostly you can see that your tablets are being coated with some colors sometimes, or some with some materials. So those additives and those materials will come under the non-clinical lab. Animal food additives, so every pharma organization will have an animal house which they test their drugs in the phase 2 of the clinical trials. So, what are the food you are giving for the animals? Okay, is there any special additive you are giving? And if you're using a human and animal drug, what you're using, right? What is the dosage you're giving? And whatever the medical devices you're using for the human use, all this will directly come under non-clinical laboratory testing. And some of the biological products and electronic products associated with the lab and also with the testing will also fall under the non-clinical laboratory studies. Uh, we look into all this, how they are being carrying out as non-clinical uh, processes. Okay, so there is a section which is telling about the studies that is performed under the grants and contracts. So section 58.1 will tell like how the studies are being performed under the grants and contracts. So what are these grants or contracts are that, right? So uh, you you have some sponsors to do your work. Okay, those people are the granting people to you. So there will be a sponsor people who are conducting a non-clinical laboratory study, and they will be reviewed under FDA. Okay, so the sponsor conducting some work should be also under this FDA regulation. Sometimes you outsource, there will be a contracting agency with your uh, organization. That is, in case if you don't have a particular facility, you have a contracting agency, or you have a consulting laboratory whom you will be giving a part of your work to be carried out there. So those are the consulting laboratory or the contracting laboratory, uh, or you can tell they are the grantee people for doing a particular work. And these people also will come under the non-clinical laboratory, and hence they have to be regulated under the FDA regulations. Inspection and testing facility. So what are the inspection facility you are uh, having in your lab is that it may be a equipment which is testing a particular component. So when you have a testing facility in place, okay, so how frequently they are calibrated, how frequently they are maintained, and who is a technician involved in that inspection. So all this has to be taken care. So this is especially with the equipments that are involved in testing a particular specimen. So these inspection facility, that is the equipments involved, should be also under the FDA regulation, right? And in case if it is not under the regulation, further inspection will be a difficult process. So whatever uh, inspection and requirement copying requirement is needed, they have to be met according to the FDA regulation. And next comes the sub part. You call it as a sub part because these people are indirectly involved with the non-clinical uh, testing facility. Who are the people and what is the organization? So, what is the education level of the people who are involved in the testing facility? Right? Do they have the experience? If they don't have the experience or the qualification, then all the testing practice what they're doing will be in vain. They have to maintain the summary of the work what they are doing, mainly with respect to the SOPs, right? And the number of people who are working should be sufficient in number, and they should not be overdosed in case if a laboratory is 24 by 7 working, right? There should be sufficient people to take up in shift, because if a person is continuously working more than a particular time period, then the efficiency of the people will be declined. If the efficiency of the people is down, then there will be a lot of errors with respect to the handling of the equipments or the other components with respect to the lab. So they should be sufficient in number, they should be trained, educated, and they should be experienced. And the person who are working should have this protection, right? They should have a proper mask, gown, aprons, and head caps and foot coverage caps, etc. They have to. It is for precautions. It is for containment as well as the contamination. So there should not be any contamination from the person, and also they have should not be affected by any drugs or anything. So they have to take care of the sanitations and health precautions, and they should be able to understand the functions what they have to perform, so that the procedures has to be cleanly or clearly mentioned to them so that they can operate it in a better way. The internal organization will definitely have a quality assurance unit. So what does the quality assurance unit do is that they look at the facilities, equipment, personnel who are working, whether they are abiding by a quality requirement, and everything will be maintained or the records will be maintained. Okay, so routine inspection will be done. So however you see the internal audits and all that, so internal audits will be done for this assurance unit, and you can tell your quality assurance unit is successful only with the help of the management. That is, there should be a proper managing people who are taking care of the quality assurance unit with respect to education, training, and experience, and there should be interpretation of the results, analysis, documentation, and reporting of the results that has to be done. So only uh, if there is a proper managing person present there who is going to inspect your cell, that is quality assurance cell, routinely, only then this will function on a quality basis. Okay, so who is the people who is going to inspect this unit or who is going to take care of this? It may be a scientist or professional who is knowing all the regulations, right, and who is able to educate, who is able to find where the problem is and then control and bring down the problems associated with the facilities or with the maintenance of the records, etc. And they are responsible for the overall technical conduct of the study, that is interpretation of the result, analysis, documentation, and reporting of the result. So in case your results are not according to what is expected with respect to the quality, the person has to find out where the problem has occurred and he should keep the process in control. Okay, and the facilities what are coming under the non-clinical testing are the animal care facilities. So it's not the animal house directly, but the care units for the animals. That is, in case the animal is sick, what are the facilities available to take care of them? And animal supply facilities, that what are the feed supplied to them, or from where the animal is transported, how they are being transported, etc. And the facilities for handling test and control articles, laboratory operation areas, and specimen and data storage facilities. So these are also associated with the non-clinical testing activity, and it should be designed, or it should be designed according to the FDA regulations, and proper regulations should be done for even these facilities that is being involved. And also, it is very important to see that the equipment, whatever you are using in the lab, should be mounted on a proper mounting, because some of the equipments will require, will produce heat, some will produce vibration, and some may produce noise. So whether they are mounted on a proper platform, if they have a vibration, and if the heat is being generated, what are precautions taken, and if a noise is being generated, and what are the sound regulations you're doing, even that falls under the facilities. And where these equipments are placed, what is the spacing of one equipment to other, whether they are being followed, and whether your lab is under a particular uh, spacing. That is, each lab should have a particular setup for conducting a study. So whether they are meeting the requirement of the space, etc., should be also inspected under the facilities. And equipment comes under the non-clinical lab. So what are the equipments used? Whether they are meeting the particular requirement, and in case yes, how routine they are being maintained, calibrate, what is the SOP they are maintaining, following, and there should be logbook to check out like how frequent the equipment is used, who is the person using, and if the equipment is overused, and the calibration or the maintenance should be also done in a frequent basis. So that is how this maintenance and calibration of the logbook will help the person in calibrating a equipment or maintaining the equipment. Okay, so the equipment is connected with these three terms, that is calibration, verification, and standardization. So, what is verification? Is an external person will come and check, okay, whether your equipment is accurate. Say if it's a weight balance, the external person will come with a standard weight. He'll put the weight on your balance. Say it is 100 gram, he put on your balance and he will check what's the accuracy of your instrument. So that is a verification which is done by external person with the external weight. And in case if it is not abiding, if it is showing a different reading, then you have to adjust or calibrate your equipment. Next is calibration. So once you verify it, they will push it to calibration, that it has to give you the right reading. So who is the person who is doing it, and what is the SOP of following during the calibration, and what are the whether it is a certified calibration method are you following. So that will be the calibration. So equipment is adjusted based on the comparison of to certified or known reference materials or reference material. So this will be done by the internal people. You have a reference material, you check it. Okay, say you have a pH 7 solution, you're putting into the pH meter, and the pH meter should show you pH 7. In case if it is not showing, you definitely have a buffer solution, which is again with restricted to the pH range. You're putting the buffer solutions and you're calibrating our equipment according to the buffer solutions. Right, so that is calibration. Standardization is like comparing two equipments at a time. Say you have two different thermometers of the same company, same maker, and you're measuring the temperature by using the two thermometers, and you're looking whether they are giving both the thermometers are giving the same uniform reading. So standardization is always in comparison with a similar equipment. That similar equipment what you are choosing for comparison should be well calibrated, or mostly it's a new equipment or less used equipment, so you compare your equipment with those similar equipment. And now comes the facilities testing operation, which is mainly with the SOPs involved. So SOPs are very important in going through any testing or any regulations. And now, like, what are the standard operating procedures you have to follow? So your lab should have a written procedure for the lab program. Okay, is whatever equipment you have or the facility you have, what are the SOPs you're doing. It may be for the maintenance, it may be for the calibration, or for the experiment. Whatever it is, you should have a SOP. They define the procedures in steps or maybe in a flow chart which is being understandable by any person, and they have to uh, they are written to explain how the procedure is supposed to work. So they are mainly the written steps to tell you how you're supposed to work. And SOPs should accurately tell you the task. It should not be elaborative procedures. It should be a one line sentence which is telling you what has to be done. And routine inspection, cleaning, and all this SOPs has to be maintained. And actions has whatever has been taken with respect to the equipment failure. That is, you called somebody to service and how it is maintained. All that should be documented. So SOPs include even this, and they will be reviewed by the internal quality assessment cell and animal care units, like how the housing is done, whether they have proper place to move about, whether the feeding unit is in hand, whether they are being diagnosed, they are treated with respect to some diseases or some infections, and all that has to be documented and written. Even these have a SOP. Reagent and solution preparation, of course, has a SOP again. And testing and control article characteristics. That is, when you are identifying a particular product, looking at the strength, purity, and composition, and even these things will have defined SOP to work. That is a test and control article characterization. So you will be doing different tests. You will be fabricating some devices sometimes, or synthesizing a product, or some test with respect to the laboratory experiments will become done. Whatever it is, there should be some procedures which is maintained and documented, and the distribution should be done in a design manner to prevent any uh, unwanted events to happen. So if something is out of control, you should have procedures to control that too. And there is a sub part which is telling about the non-clinical laboratory study. So whatever non-clinical laboratory study, what you do also has a protocol, and this protocol has to be documented. Okay, and whatever is documented, see how big the racks are, and this is how they will be documenting each and every process, like what are the calibration done, how frequent they are done, what is the auditing done, how it is done. Everything will be recorded and reported, and they will be placed in these storage area. And your organization should definitely have a storage area, and your retrieval of your records should be easy from that. That is important. Once needed, you should be able to retrieve it, and you should be looking at the procedures in case if you know want to know about the control protocols, etc. So this is how you will record and report them. And this is about the GLP for non-clinical lab. Suppose if your lab is not under GLP, what are the things you have to face? That is, the further testing or further testing facility will be definitely under failure, right? So when you move into the next step, that is, once your product is out, it has to follow a lot of regulations and rules and regulations. So once your non-clinical testing facility is not under the uh, GLP, definitely it has to go for the failure of the further testing or further regulations. So you should take care that your clinical testing is regulated. So mostly your clinical testing will be indirectly or directly with respect to the non-clinical lab. So if your non-clinical lab is not regulated, it will reflect on your product as say for example, if it's a media preparation, right, and inoculation, more of strict stringent policy which will be with respect to the LAF what you're using, and also with respect to the uh, containment and contamination regulations. But when you tell about the media preparation, which is done outside the lab, so you have to take much care about the weighing balance what you're using, and also about the reagents measurement and the pH measurement of them. So in case if you go wrong in that, your product what you're producing from the specimen or the species will be different, as some of the mutation may happen with respect to the media contents being altered, being changed, or wrong pH. So it directly or indirectly affects your product. So you have to take much care with respect to the non-clinical testing. In case if it is not regulated, your product is or your further steps are in failure. And if it is in failure, one of the procedures the FDA will follow is that it will give you a written statement telling your process is disqualified, and there will be a regulatory hearing that what you have to do, right, with respect to disqualification. Sometimes they will fine, they will put a fine amount on the lab, or sometimes there will be action that is taken with respect to the people who are involved. And so the termination, in case you after the hearing, it is kind of legal hearing what you are doing, you can have, you can convince the people. And in case if you convince in the regulatory hearing, you can they will send you a termination of disqualification, because your disqualification will be terminated, that is you are qualified in short, right? So that will be done in case you are able to convince them in the regulatory hearing. And this should not affect the integrity and outcome of the study itself. That is, in case if your process is disqualified, it will affect the other labs associated with you or the customers associated with you. So, in such cases, if they give the termination of the disqualification, it should not affect the other people who are involved along with you. So, that will be taken care by the FDA. And if the commissioner finds that the facility is non-compliant, right? Uh, right. So, if the testing facility is being disqualified, the study is done just before and after the disqualification has to be determined again. Okay, and the decision will be taken. If the study is determined and acceptable, then then the facility itself may need to show that the study was not affected by the non-compliance that lead to disqualification. So yes, you have to justify that it is with not respect to that laboratory which is disqualified, and it may not be considered for research in case if you're disqualified, or the marketing permit will be denied from the people. So you have to take much care for your lab for not being disqualified for non-clinical practice, because it is directly affecting the market as well as the research that has to be carried out. Okay, so upon disqualification, again, you may have the other agency associated with it. That is, there will be some shareholders or trust people who have sponsored for your work. In such cases, if your lab is not following FDA, they may give you a fine of so much, and if you are not able to pay the fine, you may fetch the punishment of 1 year imprisonment also. And there may be lesser fines for other cases in case if you are violating some rules and regulations, and there will be some penalties given, and there will be some criminal penalties given in case if you are not abiding by the FDA regulation. So the FDA can ask, or there is a chance of having all this on the institutions also, right? So upon disqualification again, your trust will be lost by people. Uh, they will suspend any work that is being done under your lab, right? And the sponsor, whoever is giving you amount, will terminate their funding. So, in case you are uh, suspended or terminated again, there may be 15 working days that you can tell the sponsor that the sponsor will tell you in 15 working days that they are suspending a particular work or suspending a particular funding. Okay, so you have to take care that your lab is not disqualified because it may lead to all this. And in case you are requalifying your disqualified facility, then also the commissioner will inspect the facility and determine whether it can be reinstated. If in case it can be reinstated and qualified again, and the commissioner will notify everywhere that yes, it is being reinstated, so that you can have your collaborations again, or you the sponsor or the grant will be following. But whatever it is, once you are disqualified or you are under this problem, further to it, that is further, what will happen is like the trust in your product or with the sponsors or even with the associating labs will be lost, and it is very difficult to it may be having little difficulty again to come into the same market strategy. Okay, so what is in conclusion to tell is that right, regulations are very important. Even though it's non-clinical practice what you're following, you have to abide by the regulations and you have to follow the quality policies, that is the maintenance, calibration, etc. If you do that, then there will be a minimal adverse effect on the regulations. That is, there is less chances of your lab getting disqualified. And principles may be considered as a set of criteria to be satisfied as basis to ensure the quality, reliability, and integrity. That is, there should be strict principle or strict regulations what a institution should follow or organization should follow in such cases that your process or your product will not face any problems later. So it is your duty to look at the regulations and FDA of even your non-clinical laboratory practice and go through these strict regulations to avoid any adverse effect. And more important is that whatever you do, that is, it may be a calibration or maintenance, everything should be recorded and the records should be in place. Okay, thank you for watching the lecture, and I think today you would have come through or understood like how important it is to go through even the GLP regulations for non-clinical. In short, if you are not abiding by the regulations, you will fail in the market and your drug will not be further regulated under any norms. Thank you for watching and thank you for your time.